Hey guys, it's the Flippin Hippo. Thank you for joining us on our YouTube channel at Flippin Hippos, and welcome into the first episode of our new Back to Basics series. So you want to be a reseller. The following advice I'm about to give you, some of you have already heard from a lot of other resellers, and there's a reason why this advice is given time and time again, because it's really good advice. It is a great way to get started without any risk to yourself or using any money out of your own personal funds, your pockets, your bank accounts. It's really almost a free way to get started. So what we suggest you all do when you decide you want to become a reseller is take a look around your house and see what aren't you wearing, what aren't you using, what is just cluttering up your home. And those are the items that you begin listing with. It is like almost a free way to start. Of course, all the items in your house you paid for, but if they're just sitting there gathering dust and no one's wearing them or using them, you might as well make some money off of them. And then you're not using your own personal money to start your business. It also gives you a good way to start getting familiar with a lot of the aspects of reselling, taking the photos, taking the measurements. What platform are you listing on, and how do you list there, and what kind of things do you need to do when you're listing? Weighing, shipping, making labels, all that good stuff. You can learn all of that on a much smaller scale without any risk to your own personal income. So take a look around your house. Are there clothes that you haven't worn in a long time that are just sitting there? Shoes, bags, handbags. Have your kids outgrown some of their clothes and they're just sitting there in their dresser? Maybe they're in a bag in the closet. Do you guys have video game consoles or video games that you don't play anymore? Do you have a drawer full of old phones? And I'm not kidding. I know people who have drawers full of old phones they don't know what to do with. Do you have books just sitting around that no one is reading? Do you have knickknacks, glassware, Pyrex dishes you're not using? Think outside of the box and just take a step back and look all over your house. Are there stuffed animals your kids have grown out of that are in a bag somewhere? And those are the things that you want to start with, because again, you're not spending your money to get started. But number two, and this is an important one for me because you guys know I'm all about organization and not having clutter and decluttering. You're decluttering your home. You're getting rid of all of these items that were taking up space for no reason and making room for better things or things that will be useful for you and your family. If you don't have a lot of stuff to get started with, ask your friends, ask your family. You would be surprised. When we first started on our reselling adventure or journey, and we expressed to Keith's family what we were doing, his grandparents gave us boxes of clothing and ties, and his sister gave us bags of clothes, and his dad still brings us shipping supplies and boxes and tape and bubble wrap. So don't be afraid to go to your friends and your family and tell them, hey, I'm starting a business on eBay, Poshmark, wherever you're, Amazon, wherever you're at. Let them know and ask them, do you guys have stuff around your house that you're not using, that you've just never gotten around to donating to Goodwill? Could you give it to me instead? Ask them if, because I know people who do this, do they have bags of stuff that they intended to donate to a thrift store or Goodwill just sitting in their foyer, their hallway, their trunk of their car, and ask them if you can have it. You would be surprised at the stuff you can get just from asking your friends and family, because everybody has stuff in their house and their life that they're not using that's just sitting there. And then you can list all of that stuff. Then, after you pay all your fees on the platform you're on and for your shipping, take your first $20 and go get some inventory. If you have a bins near you, I would suggest going to the bins. If you don't know what the bins are, they're the Goodwill outlet store. They're the last stop shop for items from the Goodwill retail stores, the stores you're used to, where you see stuff on the rack and they have the color tags. Those stores send all of the stuff that wouldn't sell there to the outlets, and it's the last stop before it goes to the landfills. And they take all of this stuff, the clothing, the hard goods, everything. They keep it pretty separated, clothing and hard goods, and kids' clothes is usually separated, but they dump it all in these giant bins, and that's why we call it the bins. They're these great big blue bins, and they're like in lines, and you have to dig through them to find stuff. It's not the most ideal way if you don't like to spend a lot of time digging. You gotta have patience. You gotta be willing to dig down for the treasures and look for stuff. But the reason I recommend the bins is because they charge by weight. For instance, ours is like $1.19 a pound. So with a $20 bill, we can get pretty close to 20 pounds of clothing. Most clothes, like on average, if you're not looking at jackets and jeans and stuff like that, most clothing weighs about 8 ounces on average. So you're getting about 40 items. But if you're getting jeans and jackets and things that weigh a little bit more, you're looking at less. But let's just go with the average and say you get 30 items. So you started with the stuff around your house. You sold that. You take your $20. You go to the bins. You come home with 30 new pieces of inventory to list. That's a lot of inventory for $20, especially when you're just starting out. Now, if you don't have a bins, I would recommend calling your local thrift stores to see what the sales are. Not all Goodwills will have the same sales across the region. The same with Salvation Army and other thrift stores. Some Goodwills have 99-cent Sunday, some have 79-cent Sunday, some only do half off once a week or half off a color all week. Salvation Army is pretty solid across the country. Wednesday's half off on a certain color day. I would call just to check. And then you have all your local thrift stores, the little honeypots and privately owned ones. So this is where you got to do a little bit of research. If you don't have a bins near you or close enough to you, sit down one day, call Goodwill. What are your sales? Call Salvation Army. What are your sales? Call the local thrift stores. What are your sales? So you can figure out who has sales, what days, and for how much. And then find the cheapest one and go. So let's say you are one of the lucky few that has 99-cent Sunday at your Goodwill. Take your $20 there. You could come home with about 20 items. So that's still a good amount of clothing for the buck, for the bang. If you are a person who doesn't want to sell used clothing, the bins does have hard goods and electronics, but you're really hard pressed to find anything great. And you could take your first $20 to a thrift store and maybe come out with like 2 to 4 items to resell. So your building up is going to be a little bit slower, and that's fine. And then some people use clothing as like a stepping stone or a gateway to get into reselling, and they just keep building up the capital so that eventually they can get out of clothing and get into electronics or books or media or something else like collectibles, vintage, antique, whatever your thing is. So if you don't want to do clothing, you're going to take a lot longer to build up, and that's okay. Or you can use clothing, like I said, as a stepping stone or a gateway, and start with the stuff from your house. $20 gets you like 30 items, sell those, build up, and then you could eventually get out of clothes if that's what you so desire. The other thing I would suggest is not touching your money that comes from the business for a minimum of 6 months. 6 months to a year is ideal. I would recommend opening a second bank account that is your business account where you will put all of the profits from your business. And the only thing you will use this money for is to go out sourcing and buying inventory, paying any fees or bills associated with your reselling business, and buying tools, scales, printers, lights, things that you need for your business. Anything that could be a write-off, that's what you're going to use the money for, other than inventory. The reason I recommend this is because if you get really excited, and it is tempting, to start touching your profits too early, you use it to pay bills, you use it to go on a vacation, you use it for a movie and a dinner night, whatever you use it for, if you start using that money too soon and pulling from it, you're not going to build your business up. It just is. You didn't put any money in to start if you follow this method, so you really don't need to touch that. Most people are building up while they are still working outside of the home, and they're building their business into a part-time business or a full-time business. This advice is really geared towards anyone trying to build a part-time second job out of this or a full-time job, not so much for hobby sellers. So have that bank account Put all your profits in it and don't touch it for personal reasons. Don't pull a paycheck for the first 6 months to a year. Just keep reusing that money to invest in your business and it will grow. That first $20 grows into, say, 30 items. You make 10, 15 bucks off of each of those. You've now got $300. You see what I'm saying? So just keep putting it in that bank account. Don't touch it. And use it for your business only to get it to grow. And then you have enough money to get out of the clothing game if that's what you wanted to do, or ramp it up on a bigger scale and eventually quit your job if that's what you wanted. We'll do a whole video on that because I have like recommendations about how much money you should have saved up and stuff like that. I'm not saying for anyone to quit their job. Please don't mistake that comment I just made. I'm just saying build up the profits in a second bank account. Build up that capital. Just keep reinvesting it back in your business until you have built up an eBay store to, 1,000 listings, or a Poshmark closet to 500, whatever your goals are. You will build up your platform with the amount of listings you have, the amount of inventory you have, and the amount of money you have in the bank. And then after 6 months to a year, you can start pulling a paycheck if you want to, or using it for other things. That is just my advice. I have heard other resellers advise that. It's good advice. It's really good advice. So this is, like I said, it's really geared towards people who are just getting started or beginning. But maybe some of you people, that sounds so rude. I didn't mean it that way. Some of the people watching or are veterans or have been selling might be able to take something away from this. If you made the mistake, and that's okay. It's tempting, I understand, and people make mistakes. But if you touched your money too soon, or you were using your profits to pay bills and you weren't quite building up your business, maybe you can take something away from this video. But I always recommend to people to keep doing whatever you always did to pay your bills and put food on the table and build up your business on the side, and keep that bank account separate just for the business. Eventually it will be enough that you can make it your full-time job if that's what you want. But you have to kind of just leave it there and not touch it and continue to do whatever else you were doing to make a living. So it does take dedication. It does. It takes long hours, hard work, dedication. You got to come home from your other job and work this job, but it's worth it in the end if you can build it up. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. And again, Back to Basics is meant to be an interactive series on this channel. So if you have any questions, any suggestions, requests for topics you guys want to see in this series, put them down below. I am keeping a list of all of the requests. I will be doing 1 to 2 videos in the Back to Basics series a week. And I'm going to go from the beginning to the end of what it is to be a reseller, and also interject the requests for specific topics or videos that you guys give me. So go ahead and put your input in. This series is going to go for all of 2019. I expect it to be a very long series. I expect the playlist to get really big. I expect there to be a lot of videos in Back to Basics because there's a lot to cover. From the minute you decide to be a reseller all the way to the end, there's so much to cover. And also, with me taking requests for just topics and videos, it's going to be a long series. So, smash the like button before you leave if you would. If you haven't already and you'd like to, please subscribe to our channel and help us feed a hungry hippo. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We're at Flippin Hippos. Until next time, you guys have a good night.